Hello, investigators, and welcome to Until the End of Time. My name is Veronica. Thank you for tuning in. This is the preview season update for the third week of August. There are going to be 4 cards that I'll be talking about, which are going to be Hidden Pocket, which was previewed by Obscure Studies, Quantum Paradox, previewed by Drawn to the Flame, Idle xenathos, previewed by Optimal Play, and Girish Kadakia, previewed by Tango and Plan. It's probably going to be a slightly shorter video than the last couple, but I have an important exam next week, so I like not having to work too hard right now. Please wish me luck. I'm very nervous. Alright. First up, we have a Hidden Pocket, previewed by Obscure Studies. This is a 0 XP, 1 cost event in Rogue with an Intellect and Agility icon. It is upgrade and illicit traded, and it reads, Fast, play only during your turn. Attached to a clothing or armor asset you control. Attached asset gains, you have 1 additional hand or accessory slot, your choice, which can only be used to hold illicit assets. And the flavor text is, thanks, it has pocket, which is absolutely wonderful and a reference to a lot of very funny memes. One of the examples on the screen right now. So there's a lot to talk about with this card. 0 or 1 cost and fast makes this very cheap to play, but having to control an armor or clothing card makes it have a bit of a play restriction. There are currently, to my count, 14 different armor or clothing cards in the game, with at least 3 more coming in the Scarlet Keys. The Hunter's Armor, a Guardian customizable, the Tool Belt, a neutral asset, and hilariously, the Improvised Shield can have a hidden pocket on it. So you can have this garbage can lid with a hidden pocket. As a general rule, most of these assets take up the body slot, so you want to pay special attention to cards that do not, that allow you to bypass that slot restriction. Specifically, the 2 footwear that we have are also clothing traded, do not take up any slots that are otherwise very hotly restricted, and are both pretty strong cards on their own. Like, I play both of these cards in most decks that can take them, at least if I have a reasonable agility, because getting a little bit of agility boost can often help me evade. So having this to then hidden pocket onto my boots means that I can have additional slots for playing cards that I was already playing, which I really like. Assuming that we have an asset to play this on, we can now trade 1 card and a resource for another slot. That's really powerful. I think I talked about this with the Raven Quill, that the ability to get additional slots is something that we haven't seen a lot before, and so I think this is quite powerful, just the ability to get multiple additional slots, because it's not restricted to 1 copy per asset. So you could have 1 copy of Fine Clothes with 2 hidden pockets in there, giving you 2 additional hand or accessory slots. That's very good. I think the most obvious cards to use with these are the various rogue clue-getting cards. Cards like Lockpicks, Damning Testimony, Thieves' Kit, or a large number of guns like the 25 Automatic, 45 Thompson, or Sawed-Up Shotgun are all illicit and all slide in here very easily. There aren't any illicit accessories at the time of recording, but we have a way around that by turning any item that we have into an illicit card. We've seen earlier this spoiler season, I'll Take That, a 0 cost 0 XP event in Rogue that you can play when you evade or investigate to let you play an item, attach I'll Take That to it, and the attached item gains illicit. So this way we can turn hidden pockets into a Relic Hunter for 0 XP. That seems quite good. And keep in mind, I don't think any of these cards are cards that I wouldn't be playing normally. Like, I just want to play 2 copies of Lucky Cigarette Case because it's a good card. I want to take I'll Take That because it's a reasonable economy card. And I'm okay playing 1 copy of Hidden Pocket in that case, which just gives me an extra Relic Hunter. That's very good. I think Finn Edwards is the most obvious user for this card. His Smuggled Goods signature card lets you get additional illicit cards whenever there are no already enemies at your location. So Finn can just keep finding all kinds of illicit cards to stick into his hidden pockets. But there are more. I think Tony could use this for his additional guns. Trish will be super happy to run this, getting our lockpicks and such, plus magnifying glasses, right? You can now run just both and have the lockpick sitting in your hidden pockets. I think there's probably an argument to be made for Skid running this, and I think that Monterey Jack using I'll Take That to make his Seeker cards illicit could definitely run this as well. I think he's a little bit more tricky because Seeker doesn't get a lot of illicit cards, but there are ways around that, as we just mentioned. The fact that it's 0 XP and fast means it's not really slowing you down much in the way that asset-heavy decks that want to have additional slots are usually slowed down. I think this is a really good card, and I expect we will be seeing it potentially really like shaking up a little bit how the rogue deck building works, because you can now run way more cards that take up slots because you have additional ways of getting slots. It also seems like a fascinating card for Underworld support decks where you can only have one copy of each card, because now all those additional accessories and hand slotted items that you're running just to have like spare copies now no longer are unplayable because you have additional slots to put them in. Next up, we have another random basic weakness. Quantum Paradox was previewed by Drawn to the Flame. It is a zero-cost event, and as the name implied, it is a paradox. It reads Seeker Investigator only. As an additional cost to play Quantum Paradox, you must choose and discard 4 other cards from your hand. Forced, if Quantum Paradox is in your hand at the end of your turn, reveal it and take 1 horror. I think this is comparable to a few other weaknesses that take cards out of your hand, like Amnesia or Drawing the Sign. Like Drawing the Sign, you have a bit more control over which cards you're going to lose, and it's only a single action, but it's probably going to hit you for more cards than Drawing the Sign typically does, because it has to always hit 4 other cards. This is less bad than Amnesia, which can hit you out of nowhere, which is the other upside of Quantum Paradox. You don't have to trigger it until you want to, basically, or you can delay it a little bit if you're comfortable taking a bit of the horror. Having played with Kleptomania in the past, I definitely know that if your deck has enough Sanity Soak, you can let that one sit for a little bit and not have to worry too much about clearing it. And I think Quantum Paradox will be very similar, especially because Seekers typically have a lot of Sanity Soak, and they don't have a problem drawing cards either. So I think this is actually a pretty reasonable weakness. It's pretty rough. Like, discarding 4 cards is definitely not a small thing, but I don't think this is going to be, nearly as bad as Amnesia typically is. So yeah, I think it's a good design, and I kind of like it. I like where it sits. Next up, we have Idol of Xenathos, previewed by Optimal Play. The Watcher Beyond Time. This is a 3-cost, 0 XP survivor asset, single willpower icon, item and relic traded. It takes up the accessory slot, and it has a single reaction ability. When you are dealt damage and or horror, exhaust the Idol of Xenathos and discard up to 3 cards from your hand to cancel that much damage or horror. The weight of it was reassuring, the metal warm against her skin. This card's quite interesting, and I think it's quite good at what it does, but you need some way of turning that cost into a benefit. If you're looking to protect yourself from damage or horror, most survivors would much rather play Leather Coat or Cheer's Keepsake, which can soak 2 damage or 2 horror respectively, and for 0 cost. However, if you have cards like Winging It in your deck, the cost of this can suddenly become a benefit. In addition to getting some clue compression, you also get to cancel damage or horror. When it also shuffles back into your deck, so you can repeat this loop as many times as you can draw enough cards. I don't think the Survivor is going to cause a huge shift in the Survivor meta, but it's a nice card for decks that are reliant on these discard strategies. Until now, Survivors didn't really have any way at level 0 of discarding cards other than some of the Investigator abilities. Often, you would need to purchase Cornered, an XP card, in order to get this effect. So now, maybe this is your level 0 inclusion, and then you can upgrade into Cornered down the line. Cards like Improvised Weapon, Winging It, and even a Glimmer of Hope probably fit quite well in this deck, and turning a Glimmer of Hope into a 1-action, 1-cost, soak 3 or heal damage or horror, far from the worst. There are 2 investigators I want to highlight for this. First up, Calvin. The fact that this can prevent direct damage and direct horror is quite nice. His signature does that, so having a way to just go, I'm just going to discard 1 card and not worry about that, means that you have a lot more ability to play close to that edge that Calvin loves, right? Get at 5 damage, 5 horror. You're 1 hit away from death, but you're okay. And you have very strong stat line. And the other investigator is Daniela Reyes. Now, I think Daniela might struggle to draw enough cards to really power this up, but as a level 0 option, it's not the worst. It can enable a couple of discard strategies. And once you've earned some XP, you can replace it with Jessica Hyde and Peter Sylvester, and then put a Bangle of Jinxes into this slot. One of the things that I'm hoping is that we maybe get a upgraded Idol of Xenathos that heals or that prevents even more damage and horror per card discarded, because I think that would be a very good Daniela card and might open up some new strategies for her, which I would really like. Finally, we have Girish Kadakia, previewed by Tango and Plan. Girish is a 4-cost, 4 XP Guardian card. He's the ICPC Punjab Detective, and the ICPC is a predecessor to Interpol, so an international crime, I believe it's literally the International Crime Police Community, something like that. So it's an international police task force, basically, which is very in keeping for the Scarlet Keys, right? Makes a lot of sense that they would be involved in this globe-trotting adventure that probably involves quite the body count. Anyway, he's got a willpower icon and a wild icon. He's ally and police traded. He takes up an ally slot, as you would expect. And he has the ability, he may be assigned damage and or horror dealt to other investigators at your location. And as a free trigger, during a skill test being performed by an investigator at your location, which of course includes yourself, exhaust Girish kadakia, that investigator gets +2 skill value for this test. If the test is successful, heal 1 damage or horror from Girish kadakia. He has 3 health and 3 sanity. This is a very good card. It's expensive, 4 XP is not nothing, 4 cost also not nothing, but this is a very powerful ability. Just the 3 damage, 3 horror soak, we've seen this on True Grit, something worth fighting for, as well as Brother Xavier. Getting it on a 4 cost asset is a little bit nicer, and especially getting both of those. But not only that, you also get to heal him. So this is, I think, what makes this card worth 4 XP and quite powerful, is that you can basically tank for your entire team and also get to heal this guy at the same time. So you're dealing out unexpected courages while also keeping your ally alive, protecting your entire team. This feels incredibly Guardian to me. I really love that design where it's just like you're standing there helping everybody else and you're healing and you're soaking, and it just all works so smoothly. I think especially worthwhile is that you might want to have a rogue in the party if you're doing this, because using Girish on a rogue test that you're pretty confident is going to pass anyway, but that they want to succeed by 2, makes it more likely that you're going to get those heals up, because the heal is reliant on the test passing, which is important. For investigators, I think the ones that stand out the most is both of the investigators that we know in this box that can take him. Carson, or well, I guess we don't actually know that Carson can take him, sorry. We haven't seen Carson deck building yet. But assuming Carson can take him, he is the guardian of this box after all, I think it would make sense for Carson, right? He wants to stick around where there are other investigators so he can use his ability, and then he can use Girish to boost those tests that are being taken. Charlie, I think, also loves taking Girish. It doesn't really synergize that well with his own ability. It's just a +2 as well, or a +3 on willpower tests. But more importantly, the ability to soak for other investigators and boost tests and heal means that you get more value out of that ally slot. And I think Charlie just loves any utility-based high XP ally. So I would be totally fine with running him in Charlie and being kind of a supporting Charlie. Finally, this does heal. So Carolyn Fern, I think, really likes this guy. If you have any way of readying him as well, like with Inspiring Presence, the skill card that can heal and ready an ally, this becomes very powerful very quickly, right? You can use Carolyn, use Girish to boost a test, heal a horror, get a resource, ready him, boost another test, heal another horror, and it just goes on and on and on. And I think it will be very powerful because, keep in mind, it's not just the horror and damage that you're taking, it's also the rest of the team. I think this is a very powerful, like appropriately powerful 4 XP card. The one investigator I don't really see going for him that can take him is Tommy. Tommy really wants his allies to die, and even though this is a nice amount of soak for 4 cost, I think the fact that a lot of his value is in healing himself means that Tommy would be keeping him around until he of course draws his rookie mistake, at which point this goes away anyway. So I'm not saying you can't play him in Tommy, but I look at other allies before this. I think Tommy's just sticking with Brother Xavier. And those are the 4 cards for this video. Thank you for watching. Thank you to everybody who's been previewing cards. I think the community's really been doing a good job of putting these out. Everybody's given their own spins on this. I've really been enjoying this preview season so far, and I know there's a lot left to come. So keep in touch. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. There's going to be more videos from me once we have more cards. So once again, thank you for watching, and I'll be seeing you until the end of time.